Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today we're going to be changing the high pressure fuel pump on this 2015 Yukon Denali. We're going to start with a 10mm socket, and it helps on an extension like this. We're going after the negative battery terminal. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. We have a lot of electrical in this process, and you do not want to have power and short out things. So we're going to go ahead and come over to the airbox now. Just have a flat screwdriver here. We're going to undo that clamp. We're going to come over here, and you're going to push on the bottom of this tab to slide off this little hose here, and there's another one on the other side, so just push down and slide those away. We now are going to undo the throttle body here, at least just where the intake connects to the throttle body. So another flathead screwdriver, we're just removing that. Now we can just slide this entire air box off and out of the way. Now we're going to come through with our needle nose pliers here, and you're going to see all of these little clips that they have. They're like zip ties, and they're in there pretty firm. So we're going all the way around the intake manifold everywhere we can find these, and we're just basically prying them up and off to get this harness off of the intake manifold. Now the intake manifold actually has a cover on the top. It looks like the intake manifold, but it's a cover that's going to clamshell away from this, because there are some of these clips on the back of this, and they're very hard to get to. So just for a second, we're going to cut forward into the video a little bit just so you can see these clips. They're on the back of the intake manifold cover. They're really hard to get off, so we would recommend getting them off separately once we get the intake manifold out. But this is what they look like. There's 3 of them, and so just keep an eye out for that. You can try to get them off, but you might want to wait till later on in the video, because they're all here right on the back, very hard to get to. So going back, we're going to take off the first 2 studs that are on the front of the intake manifold cover, and there are actually 2 bolts as well on the back side. Now we can go after the actual intake manifold bolts. So if you look at them, they're the gray ones, and they come out, and then you have to turn them sideways to actually get them all the way out. Now you can access these going down through the holes in the intake manifold cover that go directly down onto all of those bolts. It also helps if you remove just the coil pack on the very far driver's side like this and get it out of the way. This is going to help you get in there to one of these back ones. So you pull up on the tab, the red release tab, and then you pinch it, and that will get that coil pack out of your way. And so then as you see back into this corner, now you can have access to one of these back intake manifold bolts. Now these bolts, you want to take them out all the way, because they will fall back down in and prevent the intake manifold from coming back out, since they do have that lock on them. So next we're opening the lock on the throttle body connector here, so we're just pulling it forward, and then we're going to pinch it. And so then this will slide right off, a little help with the screwdriver there. The alternator also has electrical pin, just going to pinch that one. Now we have another breather hose here, so same thing, just pinch it and then slide it off. Over here there's another one that has a lock. We're going to slide it out with the screwdriver, then we're going to pinch on the back of it, and then it's going to slide off. Now we have another breather hose here, so again, just push in on the gray tab and slide it off. Now the intake manifold, we're going to be able to lift this up, and we're basically clamshelling it out of here. Again, those bolts for the intake manifold will keep it from coming out, and they'll fall back down in. So we want to extract all of these, and that's really going to help you. We also took this part out here for the throttle body just so we could turn it over and you could see what its clip looks like. I wouldn't recommend taking this out, but anyway, the clip on this, you push down with a screwdriver to get that gray tab back, and then you're going to pinch it, and we're going to go ahead and walk that one off. So that's for the throttle body. Now we can walk the intake manifold out. If it's not coming out, make sure all the intake manifold bolts are out, because they will fall back down, and keep it in there. Vacuum this out the best that you can. Our intake ports are now open, and you don't want anything falling down into the intakes. So we can go ahead and lift up on the cover here, as you can see, and we have a mat that we're going to take out. We put trash bags in all the intake manifold ports for now, and then going back to this, if you haven't done it already, it is easier to pry these out once you have the intake manifold out and you have a little more room. So again, we just went through with our pliers and we popped all these Christmas tree tabs out, but this cover was a nightmare. This harness is in there really well with these big clips there, so we just got behind them and popped them off. And so again, we'd recommend doing that part after the intake manifold is removed. But if you can get back in there, you can. So we're going to go ahead and take out this mat now. And this is a foam piece that covers our fuel system. And so you want to be careful with it. Of course, we vacuumed it off first, but you can still see all the dirt and everything that's down in here. So we're going to go ahead and whack this down, but that can be pretty dirty. So now we have our fuel rails and everything that are exposed here that you can see. Now we're looking at our fuel system here. You see the two fuel rails on each side with the high pressure lines going through, and we're going to remove that high pressure pump in the back. So it has a plug here, electrical one, and it's hard to see, but it does have just a pinch tab on the back of it. So we're going to go ahead and pinch that and slide that off of the high pressure fuel pump. So as you see, we pinched it and slid it off. We used a little bit of Windex on this one as well, just to kind of lube it up. On the right hand side, there's a locking harness over here, so we push the lock up forward, and then we're pushing down right here and sliding this one off. This one again was stuck pretty bad too. Just a slight little bit of Windex to get in there and lube it up. Again, you don't want to get that into the electrical connection itself, but that just really helped kind of slide that off. On the driver's side, on that side of the fuel rail, there's another one. It's the same thing. It's just in there backwards. Next, make sure you have your safety goggles and depressurize the fuel system if you want by pulling the fuel pump fuse. Ours has been sitting, but we go ahead and pop the safety clip off, and we're going to take our 3/8 inch fuel disconnect tool, and we'll show you how this works.
Push forward on the line, push in. There's no pressure, so we're okay. So let's just show that again too. So go around the line, forward on the line, in with the tool, slide it off.
We then put the fuel line in a bag and zip tied it to keep it clean. So again, be careful, you don't want fuel spraying on you. We're going to use an 11/16 or a 17mm line wrench. Either one of those sizes seem to fit okay. 17 is a little bit better. And we're going to basically put it here, and just remember, you might have more fuel spray out, so you got to be careful, but we're breaking that loose counterclockwise, and we're just turning this one here. We're sliding this one off here. Now these are one-time use lines. They are not supposed to be reused, so we're going to go ahead and everywhere we've removed these, we're replacing the line with a brand new one. So again, they just kind of break right off. You might have some residual fuel coming out of them, but we're going to go ahead and just slide these off. There's one that's bolted down in the middle, so we're going to go ahead and just remove that and remove it on the fuel rail sides. Now next we're going to take off this little cover that goes over the valve cover. We're actually going to do it on the driver's side, but I have better footage showing you on the passenger side here. And it just pulls straight up and off. You'll see though, you do have the little vacuum breather line here, so you just pinch that line just like we did on the other side of it, and you can pull it off that way. And then this cover just pulls right out. Now on these ignition leads, they're very simple to remove. You just pull straight down on them and they come off of the coil pack like this. But you just wiggle it or twist it and then it will pull off as well. So we're just going to be doing this, but only on that first cylinder on the driver's side. As for the coil pack, you're going to get a screwdriver and push up on the red tab to unlock it, pinch it, and then you're able to slide this off of the top. So that way the coil pack is now disconnected. Now this next part is optional. I'm going to take off the valve cover just so that we can see which stroke we're on. Later in the video you'll see how the camshaft is working, and honestly, as long as you're at top dead center on one of the strokes, you should be okay to install your high pressure fuel pump. But what we're going to do is remove the valve cover here so we can see when we're on the exhaust stroke for cylinder number 1. So yes, we must be at top dead center on cylinder number 1, which is the first piston on the driver's side. We're going to be able to see that by looking into the spark plug hole, but we are taking this off optionally just to make sure we're on the exhaust stroke, because people say that that's important, though you'll see later in the video that I think as long as we're at top dead center, exhaust stroke or intake stroke, we should be okay to remove and install the pump. We're going to take a 10mm socket now, and we're going to go around the outside of the valve cover everywhere that there's a bolt. Don't worry about the coil packs themselves or the other stud there for holding that fake black cover off. But once we remove all of the outer ones only, we can pop this cover off, and now we can see our valve train. So as you can see, these are the holes. And so we're going to go ahead and take our 5/8" spark plug socket, and we're going to take out the spark plug for cylinder number 1. So on this GM vehicle, cylinder number 1 is the driver's side front cylinder. So we're going to take the plug out so we can see down in here.
Bags out.
Now we're going to be rotating the crankshaft using a 24mm socket. The vehicle can be in park if it's an automatic.
Now what you're going to see as you turn the crank is the intake valve will open, and then it will close, and then the exhaust one will open and close. So right as the exhaust one closes and we see the piston coming to top dead center, we know we're on the exhaust stroke.
So what we're doing is with our camera, we're watching the piston go up, and then right when it's about to start coming down, we know we're at the top dead center, and that's where we want to be before we try to remove our high pressure fuel pump.
Valve is opening.
So we're just turning the crankshaft with that 24mm socket, and so we're watching that piston come up, and right when it starts to come back down, we're at top dead center. We're going to stop there and then remove our high pressure fuel pump.
And intake valve is closed. Piston coming up. And now the exhaust valve is starting. Almost to the top. There. You see it just start to go back down there, right there.
Okay, so let me reverse it.
Go back up just a little bit. Ready? There. That looks like it's top dead center.
Now that we're at top dead center on the exhaust stroke, we can continue with our high pressure fuel pump. And so on the side, we're going to pry off the side of this clip, and we're going to remove these harnesses to give us more room to the bolts for the high pressure fuel pump. So they're a little tricky and a little tight. So now we have a 13mm, and what we're doing is we're removing these bolts evenly on both sides. There is a big spring mechanism because the high pressure fuel pump here is being operated off of the camshaft. So if the camshaft is at the wrong position, it can be putting pressure on the bottom of this pump and damage it as we're trying to take it off. So that's why we had to put the cylinder at top dead center on the exhaust stroke is the recommendation. So as you're starting to take these out, you can see it should come out evenly. It might rise a little bit, but now we can pull the high pressure fuel pump off. Next, we're going to put our high pressure fuel pump in, so we have the tool for that, and this is it. So basically with this one, we're going to set it down inside where the high pressure fuel pump will go, and that lifter is going up and down. So we don't need the tool if our timing cover is still off, but I'll show you how this works anyway. As you rotate the crank, you're going to see it lift that tool up, and so the tool is no longer flush. And that's the camshaft lobe. Obviously that lifter is starting to lift it up, and the tool gets stuck. You kind of have to tap it down. Now for our repair, we were doing a different repair, so we actually had the front timing cover off, which you most likely won't, but we just want to show you this as reference. You see where that arrow is pointing? When it points directly down, we're at top dead center. So now that it's not quite down, you can see as we're coming up to top dead center, the tool that we have here is not completely sitting flush. So we will not install this until it's flush. As we turn the crank and that arrow now points directly straight down, we're at top dead center, and as you can see, our tool is sitting completely flush. And what that means is we can install our high pressure fuel pump without hurting the spring. So just a little flashback, when you saw how we lined everything up here, when that dot's there, our arrows down, that means that the camshaft lobe for the high pressure fuel pump will be flat. So you don't want it up in the up position like this, where it's putting pressure on the high pressure fuel pump as we install it. So you want it on one of the flat lobes, which is going to be pretty much at top dead center. So the tool helps us see that. And here, you know, a little flashback here, this is the new fuel pump roller. You can see you don't want it on that high spot. So as we rotate the crankshaft and we watch this tool drop back down and go flush, that's when we're going to be able to install our high pressure fuel pump. And again, sometimes on the tool you got to tap it on the top to get it to sit flush, and because it lifts it up and it kind of gets bound. So here we are with our new high pressure fuel pump. I bought a new one because I'd heard seals can wear out. You get check engine lights for it overfueling and then having issues. So I was at this point, we put a new one in. But you want to set this fuel pump in here and get it level. It's kind of hard to do that because you have the bracket that's higher on one side than the other. So you want to run both of these bolts down until they're evenly flush, then start tightening them down evenly. So as you see, there's a little spring tension, but we know that we have our clearance.
Run it even. Okay. 216 inch-pounds, or I think that was like 18 foot-pounds.
Now we also have our main clips back here for our fuel system. So we're going to make sure that those both go in and that the locks go into place. Those are usually attached to the fuel rail. I'm just going to leave them not on there because it really had to pull them tight to get them on there. We have our high pressure fuel pump clip. Just click that one on, and there's no lock on that one. I believe it just popped back on. Now here are our one-time use fuel lines, so we had to replace these. We're going to go ahead and take these off. Make sure you don't drop anything in the intake ports right now. So this is a ball and fitting setup. I don't know if I should have put a little bit of sealant in here or not. It didn't say to on the other sources that I saw, so we're going to go ahead and just thread these on. If they're tight, they should be okay. We're going to go ahead and wipe off any oil that was in there, and so we're going to go ahead and thread these on. This is where we're going to need a crow's foot. You can see the ball goes in, so it's on pretty tight. Again, if you want to use some thread sealant, that might be a good idea. And so here we're going to torque this down to 22 foot-pounds. So we're going to go ahead with our crow's foot and get the most accurate that we can on those. It's not the best with a crow's foot for accuracy. Then we have our last line that's going to come back on here. I'm going to thread them on. Same torque spec, 22 foot-pounds on that. So just make sure that the ball goes in nice here, and go ahead and tighten this down. They again are one-time use lines is what they claim. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down.
Okay.
Now we'll tighten down the bolt that's on top for the fuel rail system here. We then came in with our high pressure fuel pump here, took the cap off and put the line back on. This one was nice, it just pushes into place, so you'll hear it click. Pull back on it just to make sure that it's on there snug, and we're going to go ahead and put the retainer clip on here. Next we're going to look at our intake manifold gaskets. These are all individual, and if you look at them, they do have a pattern here that faces downward. So here's the part number, and the new ones, it just looks like the casting was a little off on them as far as where that mark was. They are probably reversible, but we're just putting them in exactly how they were from the factory. So we're putting that little nub on the back of them facing downward. Next we came in with our little blanket pad here. I actually left this off, and with it off you will hear that direct injection a lot louder. So I won't recommend not putting it back on, but in the end I was fitting it and everything, and just decided to leave it off so I could check up on that fuel lines there.
I'm going to torque this down evenly, going from the inside and out. So we're going to go ahead and start with this one right here in the middle. This is the bolt 1. We're going to do our first pass at 44 inch-pounds. Then we're going to go back and do 89 inch-pounds. So very light torque here. So I went through and already did both steps, but I'm showing you we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Next we installed this piece. You didn't have to take this one off, but we wanted to see what the switch looked like, so we had removed it so we didn't break anything. So we just went ahead and plugged that back in. Now we'll put on the main serpentine belts. We're going to start on the water pump, then we're going to go down under the crankshaft, and then we're going to basically have it go over the crankshaft, and this is where we're going to slide it behind the tensioner. Now we'll pull it till it goes over the alternator. This is where we're going to bring in our breaker bar. This is the 1/2-inch drive one. So we'll go ahead and push this in, and as we push down on it, that gives us our tension, and we can slide this right over our alternator.
Okay, put our valve covers back on. We just, to tighten them down, went from the insides and then worked our way out so that the gasket was spread evenly. It's only like 5 foot-pounds, so don't over torque them. And there is a ground on the back there, so make sure that that gets on. And so we just went ahead and did that on both sides. Now we're going to go through for our coil packs. We're just going to plug all these in. And then they have the lock on the top that you push down once it's on.
Now just check for everything else that we may have removed during this process, including that last coil pack to get to that last intake manifold bolt. So we'll just make sure we plug this back in, push that red locking tab back down so that it's locked, put the bolts back in. The same goes for over by the throttle body. We had an attachment. We undid the alternator as well, just so that harness didn't have a lot of pressure on it. So put the harness back into the alternator and the clip back onto the throttle body. Make sure that we put that lock back in for that as well. We'll go back and put our spark plug back in for cylinder number 1. So just remember on this, it's going to be 11 foot-pounds is all, 5/8-inch socket. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that one back down. Once that's in, we're going to bring in our ignition lead here, just pop it straight back onto the spark plug, and the ignition lead then comes up to the coil pack, and we just slide it straight back up on there. Now we can bring our air box back in, and so we're just putting it in place and tightening it down on the worm clamps. We've got the one over here as well. We did not take out the mass airflow for this video, but I have to show you plugging this in or it's going to drive me crazy. So I'm just going to plug this back in. For our vacuum hoses, we just push them from behind here until they click into place. Have one on each side here. Now we'll reinstall the negative battery cable with our 10mm socket. And now have it running perfectly smooth. So hopefully this video helps you out. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and check the video description for more information on all this. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. I have a whole bunch of videos on the Yukon, and we'll keep you updated. Thanks, guys.